Let's talk through a pledge versus a recurring donation because it gets kind of foggy in my brain on what's the difference and how do you do it in Salesforce. So a key distinction between a pledge and a recurring donation is a pledge is usually a binding commitment, while a recurring donation is not. You also need to talk with the nonprofit's accounting department and learn how they recognize the different types of gifts. The reason you need to do that with accounting is because a pledge and a recurring donation are accounted for quite differently. Recurring donations count as revenue as they're received, just like a cash donation. With a pledge, the total pledged amount is counted as revenue on the date that it's pledged, even though you don't have the money in hand yet. So a conditional pledge, on the other hand, counted as revenue once the pledge conditions are met. Then their pledge payment becomes tax exempt in the year that they pay it. So a pledge is a debt that's owned by the donor. The advantage is that it shows up as projected cash flow, so it's like literally putting money into your budget. But it also means that they need to make sure they have policies to tell you how and when to write off a debt in case the donor doesn't pay. And then there's also calculations that you do on revenue projections relating to those write-offs or discounts. And a recurring donation doesn't have that burden, but it also doesn't have the benefit of a promised cash flow because they could stop that recurring donation at any moment, and you might not know when they're going to stop it. So in Salesforce, let's talk through a one-time donation that with one single payment. Is you would just go in and create an opportunity, and it would create a single payment saying it's been paid. A donation, like a pledge, is going to have multiple payments, and they have a closed end date. So we know when I made the pledge, I will have this money paid off by December of next year. So you're going to create an opportunity record, and you could set it to stage closed 1. But as soon as you have a formal pledge agreement in place. And then each pledge installment is represented with a different payment record. So you would set up a payment schedule so that it would break it out, and you would know each month or however, each quarter, however they want to make a payment, when you're going to get that money. So the recurring donations are what they consider open-ended, and you'll use just a record for a donation, just like you would anything else. You would mark it as a pledge with, and you could do a single payment, or you could also do a recurring donation as well on those pledges. You just wouldn't put a close date on it because you never know when it's going to stop. So we'll have a video that talks through how to track each one of those in the system. I just wanted to talk through so that you knew which way to discuss with your nonprofit. How are you going to handle these? Are you going to do all of these as a recurring donation, or are you going to do them as a pledge, or does it depend? Because potentially they want to do all of them as a recurring donation, but then they decide to do a fundraiser for a building, and people are pledging money for the building, but if the money never gets raised for the building, then they're not going to ever make that donation. So it's just some of the things we need to talk about with the nonprofit to figure out what they're doing now and what they're thinking about doing in the future.